Okay, everyone, we are going to call the meeting to order tonight. If I could get you all, please stand for the Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Sally, if you could help me with the roll call, please.
Certainly. Chair Kent Atwell.
Present.
Tim Eicher.
Here.
Dave Greenway.
Here.
Dan Jashinsky.
Here.
Ed Merrick.
Here.
I'm going to mess this up. Cahalan.
That's very good. Here.
I got it. Laura Schultz. Here. Bob Weiler.
Here.
And then we also have Planner Amy Barrows, Building Inspector Scott Hessinger, and Attorney Jim Hammis with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you're going to turn the volume down. Hello, hello, hello. I think it's on that computer.
Try again.
Hello, hello, hello. There we go. Okay. Next is number 4, minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, the next order of business is number 5, a public hearing. Public hearing number 1. Topic, text amendment regarding signage. Applicant, City of Delafield. Matter, request to amend section 52-231.3 at 52-231.4B.5 regarding signage. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this public hearing? Is there anyone that would like to speak to this public hearing? Hearing none, public hearing is now closed. Okay, next we have citizens' comments for items only on the consent agenda. So that's just one item, and that's the extraterritorial survey map that combines parcels for new home construction in the town of Delafield. Anybody like to speak to that? Okay. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second. Bob.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, now we're going to change the order here just a little bit from what you have on your written agenda. And I'm going to ask the applicant to come on up and give an overview presentation of his project. And then we'll move into citizens' comments, and everybody will get a chance to speak. And then we'll have the applicant come back up to have his discussion with the Planning Commission. Mr. Dora, would you like to come up? Use one of those mics.
Yep, hold on.
It'll be on the,
So I need everyone to be patient with me here. I'm managing a couple different things.
you can walk around with the mic
Mic
if you
drop.
want.
All right, if that's works for everyone. Test. Sure. First name Brian, last name Doyle, D-O-R-O-W.
Address?
108 Kestrel Way, K-E-S-T.
And you want to use the mic.
Okay, hold on, I gotta share my Zoom screen first. Unfortunately, do you want to do this, or do you want me to do it? You can tell me.
I'll just tell you next slide, but if you go to the start, please. There we go, that's fine. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Dorrell, and I'm here to submit a proposal which was called the Heartland Gun Club at one time. And my proposal is for the Lake Country Gun Club and Firing Range. I have some of my team members here. I won't have them introduce themselves now, but through the presentation, they may be actively involved. I have Tim, Chris, and one of my other instructors will be here shortly, Tom. Next slide, please. Okay. Just want to leading up to this is about 2 months in the progress. I'd like everyone to see this. I have followed the process that has been outlined by the city of Delafield. I had an initial meeting with the mayor, the city planner, the city attorney, and the city administrator, and was advised these are the steps that you have to follow. I've had 2 visits with the aldermen of that district, just advisory meetings, laying out my proposal and my vision for this gun club. And then we had a community meeting at the Delafield Brew House. Mr. Fleming was gracious enough to host a group of approximately 30 neighbors, business leaders. I was very open during that time. I laid out the proposal, was asked a lot of questions, and did the best that I could at that point to provide the information. And then ultimately, over the last 3 weeks or so, I've knocked on about 50 doors. I basically knocked on all the doors around the gun club, about the 34 acres, and then I started moving out to different neighborhoods, and then also met with the business leaders as well. And then I also contacted the town of Delafield city planner. He already knew about it, but some of the residents, some of the town of Delafield residents encouraged me to do that. So I reached out to him and said, you know, I'm planning to purchase the property, and so, next slide. Okay. A couple of things. I am not part of the Heartland Gun Club. Not at all. Never been, and I never was even on the property prior to looking at it to purchase it recently. So there's no affiliation. They are not investing in my company. I am not taking proceeds from them. Nothing at all. And I do have an accepted offer with contingencies based on it, and that's the approval of the vision that I have for it. And then lastly, the gun club has been in existence since 1948, so I just want to get that out there. Next slide, please. Okay. Our goals. I come here as a friendly foe. I don't come here to create any dissension, and safety will be our priority, top priority. My background, I have an extensive law enforcement background, 28 years. Former City of Waukesha police supervisor, then I was a dean at WCTC, where I ran all the training, the continuing education. I built WCTC's indoor range. It took me 7 years to build that. I designed it, I implemented it, I raised the money for it, and we opened it up. Initially, it was designed for law enforcement training, and because, you know, the uniqueness of being in Waukesha County, the enthusiasts that we have with gun activities, I was able to set up an enterprise account where we opened it up to the general public. And it went over very well. At no time did we have any incidents. It was under my watch for 4 years, and then ultimately I left to take a national security position, and ultimately continued on for 3 additional years, and there never was an incident, a concern from that range. And then more importantly, build confidence of the neighborhood. I've said that numerous times. I come here as a friendly foe. I want to build the confidence, the trust. I've been very transparent along. There's no agenda here at all. Everything I tell you tonight will be consistent with what I told you before, and it'll be consistent in the future. There's no bait and switch that will take place. I won't ask anything for anything more than what you're seeing tonight. And go back, please. And the other thing that is, assuming this proposal goes forward, I want to build a very professional gun range and gun club and firing range. Highly respected, very professional, trained staff. Safety will be number one. We'll never compromise safety. We'll put all the requirements that are in place, again, so that people feel they can come there, and we'll have, I'll go into more of the vision for it in subsequent slides. Next slide, please. So the proposal. There's 3 parts to it. First of all, and you'll see it in subsequent slides, you will see the layout of the building. But on the land, we'd like to construct a new building approximately 120 feet by about 60 feet, and attached to that building will be 2 indoor shooting ranges. We plan for a 75-foot, traditionally a pistol range, as well as a 300-foot indoor rifle range. And in that facility, we'd like to have educational opportunities, training, personal protection. We'd like to have a retail area to include gun sales, accessories, ammunition, as well as host social events and apply for a Class B liquor license. Next slide. Okay. Here's the layout. I don't know if anybody can see it, but you come in off of Maple Avenue. Initially, we looked at this area right here to propose the building. Some of the neighbors asked if we could do it differently or a different location. We took that in consideration, and absolutely, so we moved it where you pass the first berm, and then where, once upon a time, the trap shooting would take place. That's where we're looking at the constructing the building. You can see the two ranges, and then the parking lot. Next slide, please. Here's more of what it looks inside. This is conceptual at this time. It may change. Seating area, we have some office area, a conference room, a classroom, into the rifle range, and as well as you have the pistol range here, and then the retail space is right here. Next slide, please. Okay. Uniqueness about our facility. First of all, it will be membership. If anyone comes to the club to shoot, it will be based on membership only. We will do background checks on everyone. Certainly, there will be a mandatory orientation, and following the same model that we implemented at the WCTC range. A mandatory orientation, so everyone is very familiar with gun safety. They know the 4 cardinal rules. We will follow them to a T. We have range safety officers in place. So these range safety officers will be highly trained. They won't be part of they'll be paid employees. Normally at the WCTC range, we had former police officers or someone that was very qualified to be a range safety officer. And at any time live shooting is taking place, on the indoor part of it, as well as my proposal, the outdoor part of it, there'll be a range safety officer in place. As well as we will, like we did at the WCTC range, we will inspect the firearms and the ammunition before anyone actually gets on the line. Next slide, please. Okay. As of right now, according to the conditional use permit, the Heartland Sports Club has 6 ranges. If I'm successful with this proposal, the 50-foot range closes immediately, the West Bay range closes immediately, the rimfire range closes immediately, and the trap range closes immediately. Never to be resurfaced again, and my proposal is to maintain the 50-yard range and the 200-yard range. Next slide, please. Yeah. In maintaining those 2 ranges, as of right now, the CU allows for approximately 26 hours per week. It's every other Saturday, every other Sunday, and then some of the time you can shoot from 12 to 8, I think Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. My proposal is that I will reduce the hours and the duration to 4 3-hour blocks per week, total of 12 hours. And if this is approved, I will work with the community directly to set those hours. I know there was a concern that, well, I don't want shooting during my weddings. We won't do it during the weddings and other activities that may present themselves. So I'll work with the community. I'm asking for 12 hours, never to exceed 3 hours at one given time. Okay, next slide.
Go back.
Yes.
Yep. Just want to make sure. Common rifles only. I've heard that someone may have shot a 50 caliber rifle in that range. At no time will a 50 caliber rifle be shot or anything remotely close to that. I'm looking at commonly used rifles, 30-06, 30-30, maybe a 223, and we will certainly encourage suppression units. As we go down, we'll comply with what is outlined for those 2 ranges in the CU, and I'll go above and beyond. We'll look at a baffling system. We'll look at increasing the berm. We'll look at sloping downward the fire, so you're from a position up higher and you're shooting down. All those things will be taken in consideration and implemented before we'd go live with those 2 outdoor ranges. Next slide, please. The traffic flow. As of right now, on the high end, I talked to the architect. He was talking to some of the civil engineers in his company. We're looking at 40 cars on the high end. How we arrived at 40 cars. There are a maximum of 20 lanes. The indoor ranges will have, the pistol range will have 12 lanes. The rifle range will have 8 lanes. We took the maximum amount possible and reduced it by 50%. And then we figured if there's 10 shooters on the line at any given time, there's probably 10 shooters that are coming in, waiting to shoot. And then the other ones we based that someone may be in the clubhouse area, as well as we may have a class that usually has capacity for 8 to 10 people. And so we based it at the high end of 40 cars. Environmental study, we're still looking at that. We will certainly initiate and complete an environmental study of the area, and I don't have any details as of right now on that. Next slide, please. Oh boy, this will be tough. I mean, a lot of you probably have seen this. It's just an overview of the Heartland Sports Club. Here's where we propose the building. You can go to the next slide, please. And this more or less shows the current where they had the ranges set up. But again, it looks like it's a little blurry, so it's hard to see. This range will be closed. This range will be closed. This range will be closed. I'm asking in the proposal to keep the 50-yard and the 100, 200 yards. So these two ranges right here. Again, with a baffle system, berm, and all protection measures that are necessary. And next slide. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to go into citizens' comments for anything on or off the agenda. So I have a little presentation I go through here. Thank you for coming tonight. We're glad you're here. We're eager to listen to your comments, all items on or off the agenda. Please keep your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. And we arrive at 3 minutes based on the number of people that are in the room. We have a full room tonight. We need to be able to get through and hear everybody's comments. And I'm going to have a timer. And when you're getting close to the 3 minutes, I'm going to tell you need to wrap it up. And hopefully we'll all respect each other so other people can speak as well. Please do not repeat what others have said. Simply tell us you agree with their comments and add any new comments you might have. I see some new faces, and we're here to help you through this process. If you're unsure of something, please just ask. I'd also like to remind you that reaching out to your alderperson can also be a great first step for communicating and escalating for any questions or feedback. So let's go ahead and get started. Who would like to be first? All right.
Just so that the public knows, this is not a formal application at this time. So if the applicant does decide to formally apply, you would need to come in and resubmit your comments in order for those to be part of the public record. So, what you're stating today will be heard by the plan commissioners and considered, but if you want it to be part of the formal record, you'll need to come back for that, okay?
Name and address, please.
Gary Avila, 3423 Broken Bow Trail.
You just got to bring the mic closer to your mouth.
It's off.
My 3 minutes didn't start.
No.
You have to pull the switch towards you on the top of the mic. There you go.
It's on, you just got to pull.
Is it good? All right. 3423 Broken Bow Trail. I'm speaking on behalf of my neighbors in the written words of Attorney Mitchell Olson of the Axley Law Firm. Following excerpts of salient points from a letter he recently submitted to the city. I represent Jones Apicki and Aircon Manufacturing with respect to a new proposal for Mr. Brian Doro to purchase the HSC property. It's currently subject to a conditional use permit that was approved in November of 2020 under court order based on the application from 2011. The CUP provides in pertinent part that it doesn't become effective until all conditions and contingencies have been satisfied, which they haven't. The HSC can conduct authorized activities and only those authorized activities described in the CUP, whereas any other uses are prohibited. The then existing zoning code authorized issuance of a CUP to non-commercial clubs. The provision was subsequently amended to forbid sport shooting ranges. The CUP nor any rights accruing to the HSC under the terms of the CUP may be assigned, transferred, or conveyed. The current version of the zoning code B6 doesn't allow commercial shooting range operation as permitted or conditional use. However, the applicant materials, Mr. Doro, state an intent to operate a premier indoor and outdoor shooting range and also a community training area, a retail space, and a social area with a Class B liquor license. When reviewing this proposal, the city should be aware of the following legal positions my clients intend to defend and pursue as necessary. The existing CUP by its very terms cannot be transferred from the HSC to anyone, including Mr. Doro, or amended in any fashion with respect to his proposal. Amending a currently non-effective CUP would be invalid. The CUP is explicit that no uses will be allowed unless spelled out in the CUP, whereas Mr. Doro is creating massive change to the activities on the site. The CUP as issued cannot be amended essentially to create a new scope of land use. For the zoning code, amending an existing CUP is limited to the existing conditional use, and the amendment process cannot be used to create a new use that's not close to the existing conditional use. A commercial shooting, retail, and bar business is not permitted as a conditional use under the current zoning code. The city has no basis to take an existing CUP and amend it to such terms that have no legal justification under the current code. It appears the only valid path forward would be to amend the zoning code to make such uses a legitimate conditional use and then go through the entire conditional use process. Making shooting range a permitted use without conditions to the operations would be extremely reckless and open the city up to either additional gun ranges without any control or effectively engaging in illegal spot zoning for the benefit of a single landowner. The feedback of our clients is that an outdoor commercial shooting range should be excluded from the proposal and permanently abandoned. That's Attorney Mitch Olson's letter from Axley. I think it reflects the sentiments of much of my neighbors. So for those who agree with what was just written, I'd like you to just stand, please. My 3 minutes are up, Mayor, but you know, just on a personal note, I know you guys are trying to come up with a solution that fits. I just want to make sure that two wrongs don't make a right here, and that's the concern I think that the residents have.
Okay,
Thanks.
great. Thank you for your comments. All right, who'd like to be next? Come up, sir.
Sir. Oh. How's everybody? My name is Mitch Cieslak, 903 Broken Bow Court. Just want to start off with saying I commend the city of Delafield and Brian Dora for trying to come up with a good idea that's not just quite there yet. For a businessman like Brian Dora, I'm sure he is trying to stretch every dollar he has, getting a good price on a piece of land, and thinking about solving a problem, but not on this piece of land. After speaking with many of the neighbors and even some of them asking him to leave their property, I think that pretty much at large shows that we are not in favor of having a gun club. For the city, it looks like a better solution than they currently have that was handed down to this administration from the old administration. But this is not the piece of land to have a gun club. This will continue to cost the city hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees, citizen complaints, police hours, and go on for years and years like it has. Once again, the city made a good first step when they changed the zoning on this land after the court's decision on the Heartland Sports Club CUP. The new zoning on this land does not allow for a gun club to be operated here or anywhere in the city of Delafield. Thank you for doing that. No gun clubs in the city of Delafield. The city made their decision on this proposal and such proposals in the future when they passed that zoning. No gun clubs in the city of Delafield. Let's be honest, for decades now, 21 years that I've lived here, this land as being a gun club has been nothing but a problem. Now we have a new idea for a new gun club that is being met with opposition. Do you know why that is? Because most of the people in this community and surrounding communities don't want a gun club. Let's face it, we are done with shooting in this area. We have had this current club sending gunfire into the neighborhood, into businesses where people have gotten shot, hearing gunfire while we're in our backyards enjoying our homes. We even had a gunman shoot 2 police officers in this area. We're done with gunfire. Okay? Just because the land was a former gun club doesn't mean it should stay a gun club. Now that the city knows that the owner is looking to sell, the city needs to step in and help him find a suitable buyer. Heck, let's reach out to Diane Hendricks. She seems to be very interested in developing the city of Delafield. We got a piece of property for sale. There's a senior living center that got shot down off of Lake Negawicka. Let's call them. We did a great piece of property there. Love to have them as my neighbor. They'd be welcomed by our entire neighborhood. There's somebody out there that would buy this land. Real estate is at an all-time high. Let's look for opportunities for these gentlemen to sell this property to the right buyer. In closing, I'd just like to say, what looks like a quick fix of this problem is not the answer. Let's make the right decision. Let's not make it another gun club. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Okay, who'd like to be next, sir? Come on up.
My name is Charles Winter, North 8, West 30658, Broken Boat Trail, Town of Delafield. Outdoor shooting ranges. The tranquility, livability, and viability of my Cherokee Woods neighborhood will be destroyed by the close proximity of the proposed Doro outdoor shooting ranges. The possibility of stray shots emanating from the shooting ranges and the overwhelming presence of unabated gunfire noise will certainly ruin my neighborhood. Depressed property values. Surveys have shown that the presence of a shooting range depresses surrounding property values by at least 3.4%. Considered opinion is that property value loss of at least 10 to 15% is a more reasonable evaluation. Lead remediation. An estimated 391 tons of lead has been deposited onto the grounds of the Heartland Sportsman's Club. Who is going to clean up this potential toxic disaster, and when is it going to be done? Gun club structures. The City of Delafield Municipal Code permits only residential buildings to be closer than 75 feet of a property lot line. The Heartland Sportsman's Club range office is only 19 feet from my property line, and its 200-yard shooting range is less than 50 feet from my property line. This is unacceptable. This concludes my remarks, and I would like this testimony to be included in the public record. Is that possible or not?
You can give a copy to Sally.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Thank you for your comments. Who would like to be next? Anybody else like to speak to anything on? Oh, there you go. Come on up, sir.
Good evening.
Name and address, please.
My name is Dirk Wilkin, and I live at 3325 Broken Bow Trail in the city of Delafield. My experience with outdoor shooting ranges was with M16s and 45 caliber pistols when I was an active duty officer in the U.S. Army in the early 1980s. I'm definitely not opposed to guns. Even in the military, we located our shooting ranges far from the barracks, from the mess halls, and other populated areas for the safety and comfort of the entire military community. Even at that distance, ranges were pointed away from the buildings. Who would build an outdoor shooting range in the city limits? Why would anybody build a range so close to a residential area? Who would want their backyard to be a backstop for a high-powered rifle shooting range? Who would want to walk on a street that's downrange from a shooting range? There's a reason that these guys from Heartland, Brookfield, Sussex, and New Berlin aren't looking to buy land in their cities. They don't want to live next to a shooting range, and neither do we. My wife works in an office about 5 miles from the Warren Valley Sportsman's Club. They hear the shots at the office when they're shooting there. But you go home from an office at the end of the day, home to a place of peace and quiet, unless there's a shooting range less than a mile away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, who would like to be next, sir? Come on up.
Hello, I'm Mike Nyman. I'm from W317 and 641 on Partridge Run in the town of Delafield. So I'm coming in with a little bit of a different perspective. I'm in support of this. I have heard about the plan, came here to hear a little bit more about the plan. I know Mr. Doro. I know the integrity that that group brings. I know the skill set that they bring. I know that the success at WCTC has been successful. I don't have the worry and fear that the others have had that presented here about bullets flying and any safety issues that would come of this. I see a very sound plan. I see this as it's an investment in the community. The gun range existed before we all lived here. It is a highly desired business. It would be a successful business. It is a needed business. The idea that individuals here may not like it is one thing, and that's their right to believe that and have that feeling. But I think there is a lot more people out there that see this as an opportunity to help them be better shooters, better safe shooters, and more skilled with this, with firearms. A gun range can exist. The legal argument has been decided. He is not making a new gun range. This gun range exists. He's actually taking 60-ish% of the range and not having it a down outside gun range, making it safer for the group. So looking at this plan, I think it's a very sound plan. I think you have a pedigree of individuals here that have shown through their commitment in law enforcement, their commitment at WCTC to develop a top performing fire range, both for police and for the public, and their public service and drive towards safety. I haven't really been in this discussion. I just came here tonight to see what the plan was. And I thought it was very sound. I think it's something that can be done safely. I think it's a business that is going to help the community. It's an investment here. I don't see them as outsiders. I see them as people that want to commit to making an already existing facility much safer, better, and to the advantage of all of us. I've been here for 20-some years, 22 years. I knew that there was a gun club when I came here. The gunshots aren't going to bother me. It's the amount of time that they're talking about outside is probably going to be far less than what Mr. Doro has stated, though he probably would like 12 hours. I highly doubt that you're going to get 12 hours of gunfire. I have shot at Warren Valley. I have shot at McMiller's. Warren Valley does have public residents around them. It's not something that I think is going to be a problem. I commend them for coming in with a substantial fiscal investment to take what is a area that has 6 firing lanes, as you said today, down to 2.
Need to wrap it up. Great, thank you very much. Who'd like to be next? Sir, come on up.
Bill Labensorger, 100 Eagles Cove Circle in North Prairie. I'm in one of the surrounding communities, quote unquote, and to me, I just came to find out more information about the plan. And from what I've seen, or from what I've heard, the range has been here for an awful long time. And based on this gentleman's plan, the ranges I'm familiar with, his safety measures far exceed anything I've ever seen in an outdoor range or an indoor range. I mean, going to level inspecting ammo, that's incredibly safety conscious. As far as the amount of time people are exposed to gunshots, 12 hours doesn't seem like a whole lot of time. And I'm just speaking for someone that that frequents the Delafield area continuously throughout the week and would like to see a shooting facility close by as well as see training opportunities to educate people on firearms and firearm safety. So I do like his plan. And I don't know if I agree with the housing values going down. Over the years, I've been a shooter over 40 years. Every place I've attended a range, it seemed like if a range was way out in the open, there would be homes built right up to the range. So, I mean, all these people who are building homes around these ranges, they know what they're getting into. And as someone else stated, this range has been here, or a range has been there 23 years ago. So that's all I have to say. I'm in favor of this plan.
Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments.
Bill, what was your last name again?
Lincoln Sorter.
Yeah, that's a toughie.
Hi, my name is Lisa Bingenheimer. Just thought I'd throw that in after Bill. But I'm actually here on behalf of Wendy Ackley. She wasn't able to make it. She also lives in the Lake Country area at South 28 West 30070 Bryn Mawr Court. And I'll just read what she says, and then I do have a couple questions for Brian also.
Okay, you can't ask any questions.
I can't ask
No.
any questions, just testify. All
Yeah.
right, we're there. My name is Wendy Ackley, and I'm a resident of Waukesha County, having lived in the Lake Country area for the past 30 years. I was married in Oconomowoc and work as a realtor throughout the area. I've raised 6 children in the Arrowhead School District. My adult children and I are all gun owners. Today we shoot at Fletcher Arms in Waukesha and McMiller Sports Center in Eagle. Fletcher's is a small and usually noisy, crowded, indoor shooting range. McMiller's, although nice outdoor range, is a drive to get there. My family and I are delighted to hear of the possibility of an indoor-outdoor shooting range right here in our backyard. I have watched the gun purchase statistics over the past few years, and out of all the guns manufactured around the world, 85% of those are now in civilians' hands. That was through a small arms survey. In the United States alone, citizens own 393 million guns. 6 million of these are registered. Sounds like a weird number. 39% are men, 22% are women, and in the U.S. alone that own firearms, 43% are in Wisconsin alone. These statistics clearly show there's a growing number of people wanting to own guns today. The demand and interest is here and here right now. People need facilities to shoot and practice using these weapons they now own. Therefore, it becomes the responsibility of communities to provide citizens access to facilities to help them learn and train on the use and safety of a gun. It also provides gun owners a community into which to discuss and share ideas, to work together on gun safety and ownership and handling. As citizens, we all want the freedom to own a firearm, and we want this to be done responsibly and safely. On a side note, I have known Brian Dorough for almost 10 years. He's knowledgeable, competent, and a responsible man with uncountable resources. If he tells me this new range is going to have the newest building materials and enhance shooters' quality and yet maintain every safety measure taken into account for both the shooter and the area surrounding the shooter, then this is his word I can rely upon. If you have any questions, please contact her, and I'll give you this. So.
Great, thank you for the comments. Okay, who else would like to speak? Anybody else like to speak? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Maria Luther, owner of the Smiley Barn, 2420 Milwaukee Street. I'm going to break things up a little bit because I have a different topic to address. I want to let everyone know that I fully support the new placement of Olive Garden's pylon sign, as shown in the agenda materials. And I want to thank everyone here for slowing down and being thoughtful and considering the issue fully. And I especially want to thank the Olive Garden. They really listened to the concerns about blocking the view of our beloved Smiley Barn, and they were very gracious, put extra time and effort into finding a new location for the sign, and I want to thank them very much.
Thank you for the comments.
Thank you for following up the way you did. Appreciate it.
Yep. Are there any other comments from the audience? Come on up, sir.
My name is Mike Southard, and I live at West 302 North 898 Maple Avenue, Waukesha. And this is a comment for everybody up here. As you all probably realize right now, the Heartland Sportsman's Club is basically bordered by one half city and one half town. And I would highly appreciate the fact that when this goes into further discussion, as a resident of the town, technically, we have nothing to say about this matter. Although the city can control anything within a mile and a half into the town, the people that live within a mile and a half of the city have no control, or that live in the town have no control over what the city does. So I guess what I'm sitting here right now asking every one of you, this is a matter, this is a subject that pertains to half city, half town. And I would like your response to at least listen to the people out here. I'm not saying I'm for, I'm not saying I'm against, but I feel that everybody needs to work together on this, not where just because it's going to benefit the city, we're going to go with it, but throw the town underneath the bus. And with that being said, I would appreciate that commitment from you that in further communications or whatever you want to call it, that we all work together on this, because this is something that has been a problem, and it's been a problem since 1968. And I've got conditional use permits all the way back to 68. And one guy will say this, and one guy will say that. One guy might be right, one guy might be wrong, but we have to try to correct this now. And again, I'm saying that you listen to both sides, okay? And then take the best of what you guys feel is right and go with it. Okay, then in regards to the actual proposal, which I have seen on there was a number of cars that he had mentioned of 40 cars. Now that's 40 cars in a block. Okay, what happens down the road is that 40 cars every hour that go in and out of there? That club was never set up to have a driveway to accommodate a large amount of cars. That's another comment. The other part of it is, are you going to require it lit? Because now anybody who's on the Maple Avenue end of it is now going to have lights. What do you require in your town or in the city for a road for industry? Because he's basically going to be, it's going to be an industrial facility. What do you require for a road? Does he have the proper widths to make that road? And again, I'm not saying I'm for, I'm not saying I'm against, but these are things that you guys are all going to have to sit down and figure out. And I'd just like to say, I'd like you to do it with the whole neighborhood, not just the city aspect of it. And as far as the people out here, I'd like you all to work together with the city. Some of you are city, some of you are town, but all work together because we are one community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, we have another person that would like to speak. Come on up, sir. And then we're going to go to Zoom next. If we have anybody that would be on Zoom who would like to speak, we're going to go to Zoom after this gentleman.
Am I good?
Okay.
Name's Brian Southard, W302 and 664 Bryn Drive, down Delafield. Just want to sort of point out the fact of going from 25, 30 hours down to maybe 12. To look at the gun club as it is, might have 5, 10 members out there shooting during their time, as opposed to, say, 3-hour blocks where if it's nights, weekends, likely when people are going to be off of work and can go out and shoot, you're going to be having people going in for their 30-minute, 1-hour periods, rotating in and out consistently probably, because there isn't a range like that outdoors around here, with likely significantly more gunshots put off as opposed to the current gun club members who they're not out there to get their money's worth out of the time that they're paying for. They're going to be shooting, talking with the other club members, whatnot, not going in there and going to business with their gun shooting, as well as the fact of, I agree with the lighting. the traffic going in and out, where it might not affect the city people side, however, it does affect the Maple Avenue side. So it's sort of a thing of where currently right now, the Heartland Sportsman's Club, they won the court battles. If they make the proper improvements, they can open up the lanes as they go. However, even with more shooting hours, it's likely going to be significantly less rounds put off, which is the issue with sound and possible safety based on all that. Done.
Great, thank you for your comments. Okay, Amy, do we have anybody on Zoom that would like to go?
If there's anyone on Zoom who would like to speak, please unmute yourself and go ahead and speak, or wave your hand if you know how to do that on Zoom. Anyone? Going once? Going twice? I know several of these people on here are actually for Olive Garden,
Okay.
so we might
All
be
right,
good.
so one more time in the room. Anybody else like to speak tonight? Going once? Oh, come on up.
Susie Odagba, N7W30538, Maple Avenue, Town of Delafield. Good evening. I'm here to speak because I live within a 2-mile radius of the Heartland Gun Club. I don't live in North Prairie. That's a distance away. And I'm sure other individuals that's probably coming from afar, they would like the gun club. That's because they don't have to listen to the repetitive sounds of the shots or bullets that's going on. Now, as an undergraduate student in my military science class, I shot an M16. Exhilarating, but it was not in my neighborhood. I also worked as a forensic scientist for the Department of Justice. We have to test ballistics. It's not pointing toward my house, nor was it pointing toward my DNA unit. I also worked for Waukesha County Public Health. I did lead testing. Lead causes aggression in children. Now, I'm on a septic and well system. There's something called runoff. I'm also a biologist. I don't want lead in my water. That's coming from Mississippi. I don't want the aggression. I don't want the harmful impact to my environment or my community. Yes, the Sportsman Club was in existence, but not operable when I bought that beautiful piece of land on Maple Avenue. Oh, I was so excited, although I'm scared to drive down my driveway from time to time because it's about a 20-foot drop off from each side. And my son, who loves animals, he's always out there, and we're watching the deers and the skunks and the hawks. It is so beautiful when I sit there in my 4-season room and I look, I just love it. And now I work for the Milwaukee Rescue Mission. I work in the inner city, teaching students who have learning disability, and I'm sure probably some of it is due to the lead, that are having difficulty with learning. It's heart-wrenching. And here my kids are out here on Maple Avenue attending Catamaran, doing such a great job. One just graduated from New York University. The other one graduated as salutatorian of Catamaran High School and now is attending an Ivy League school, Columbia University in the city of New York. But had she been exposed to excessive amount of lead, I'm sure she would not have been able to make it and soar to the heights that she's soaring. I would love my son that opportunity, and I'm asking you to please consider the impact that you would have on the community for the people that live within the radius of the Heartland Sports Club.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anyone else? Going once, going twice? Citizens' comments are now closed. Okay. We are going to move on to unfinished business. And Mr. Doro and your team, if you'd like to come up. We will be on agenda item 8A, taken out of order, actually under new business, or preliminary conceptual project. Yeah, 8A. You guys just want to pull up some chairs over there if you need them. Pass the mics around as you need them. Okay, Amy, you want to give us a brief overview?
So just real quickly, the property is zoned B6. It's planned mixed use on the land use plan. The applicant came in to talk to us as a city staff, a few of us members, and we did suggest they go reach out to the public and come in here and do a conceptual presentation, so that's why they're here today. The property is allowed to operate with a gun club right now under an existing conditional use. They have to meet several conditions. If they do that, then they could open up. The conditional use is not transferable, and so that is a provision that if the property is sold to the applicants that are sitting here, we would need to go through an amended process. And since Attorney Hammis has been deeply involved in this long-term conditional use, and there's been lawsuits, and we don't need to get into great detail on that. After the applicants speak, he can go through the options that the applicants can pursue moving forward due to the fact that the existing conditional use is not transferable. As applicants, do you have anything else to add to your previous presentation?
So just to clarify, we're not voting on anything tonight. This is a preliminary review. The presentation was given. You heard the citizens' comments. This is your opportunity as we deal with similar situations like this to ask the applicant questions. And the applicant at the end of the day is looking for, I think, a head nod, kind of one way or the other, if there's some support for this proposal or if there is not. So your feedback is appreciated by the applicant.
The outdoor ranges that you're looking at having, the direction they're pointing, I know you explained that safety measures will be a high level. What kind of a distance are you looking at from the possibility of where they are currently to the surrounding businesses? From what I looked at the map, that seems to be the direction they're going. Do you feel that the distance that you have there is appropriate?
Can you hear me? So I think definitely safety features have to be added. And whether that's, substantially increasing the berm, adding a baffle system, changing the downward slope of the shooter, that certainly is paramount. In its current state, it is not safe. It needs upgrades. I couldn't tell you the exact distance. I have not measured it, from the businesses up top, but definitely safety measures have to be put in place immediately.
Do you have a direction that you follow as far as your safety measures, a standard that you look into?
Well, we'll certainly use the NRA safety policies, and there's a lot of stuff out there. But I brought in a gentleman from Action Target, who I deem as one of the top companies in the country when it comes to range construction, range modifications, just to kind of look at the area. He's going to get back to me. He made some recommendations that go look at other ranges. There's one in Michigan that I'm going to actually drive to take a look at and get ideas of existing ranges before come back and start looking at. But there's quite a bit of material, and I will also consult with range experts that certainly do this for a living, see what would be the best way to move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question. I do not know much about ranges, so this might be really naive, but got a number of citizen emails, letters explaining their position, and several of them that I read were just like don't need an outdoor, just make it indoor, right? So let me ask potentially the dumb question. Why do you need an outdoor? Why can't it be all indoor?
Yeah, certainly as I was knocking on doors, I think there's, from my perspective, overwhelming support for the indoor range. And as far as I'm concerned, no one ever said anything about the indoor range. I look at the uniqueness of the outdoor range. There aren't many around, and that's why I did include it in the proposal. Again, for that, I plan to base the range shooting on a membership, so the members will have the option to shoot inside or those allotted time amounts to shoot outdoor. And I think that's very appealing to some of the shooters to do that activity.
Do you feel that's a must-have in your business plan and what's viable for the investment? And is it one of those you just got to have type of things, or do you know yet?
I would like to explore it. It is part of my business plan at this time, but certainly want to hear everybody's comments. I've heard from the neighbors. I've met with them extensively, and so I would just like to explore that option at this time.
So the reason to have it is a draw for membership, not necessarily an incremental revenue stream or anything.
No,
it's a draw.
It's a draw.
Okay.
I look at it as a draw. Do you have anything to add, Chris, to that?
No, I think you hit it on the head. The outdoor range, especially an outdoor range that has the capability of reaching out to 200 yards, is unique. It's unique in Waukesha County. The only other one is down at McMiller's, and one of the citizens had already stated it is a bit of a drive. So it is a draw. It also, for people that are into long-range precision shooting, there's a lot of elements that are involved with that. One of those is the wind and the temperature that you have to deal with. So while we have a 100-yard indoor facility available, when you want to test your skills with long-range shooting, you need to introduce a lot of the different environments that you're going to be shooting in, including temperature and wind. So it is a draw, and it is something that would be very unique to the area.
Just when other people speak, please give your name.
Oh, sorry.
Before you speak, just give your name.
I'm sorry, my name's Chris Jekyll.
Thank you.
I have a question. The road that's below the club, where the shooting range, the indoor shooting range there, is the range to the west and down the slope?
So it's coming off of Maple.
I know the club very well.
Oh, okay. So the range is actually, you go upward and then it levels off, where the trap range at one time was. So
Yeah, that's where the indoor is going to be,
yes,
right?
Yep.
But I'm talking about the outdoor ones. You take that lower road there and it goes down the
It does.
slope.
That's correct.
What they used to call the pits.
Okay. Yeah.
And also the archery range used to be down there, and it's a little bit below the landfill, the dump.
Okay. Yeah, it's down. I mean, when you're
Right.
driving down.
And you propose to even make it a little lower?
Well, the way I looked at it when I had the gentleman from Action Target, he made suggestions where you certainly elevate it. It's more or less looks like this. So if you're shooting like this. He suggested that you cock it, adding additional cement or some type of barrier here, so you're going downward, and then dig the lower end down, as opposed like this, you are clearly shooting in this position.
Okay. I do know that there's a large hill on both sides, to the north, and the neighbors are way up on a ridge to the south.
That's correct.
So I do know that. My suggestion would be, is before we make a decision here, you can say yes or no.
We're not saying you, we're just giving them guidance. Just giving them guidance.
All right. If it comes down to that, though, where we're going to make a decision on this, I would like to have members visit the club, walk the land, so they get a real understanding of what the terrain is there, where everything is going to be. That would be my suggestion if this moves forward.
I was going to make that suggestion as well. And I was also going to make the suggestion for the gentleman that came up. I do want to treat it as a holistic, both the town and the Delafield.
Right.
I want, its entire community. I understand that, and I want to treat it as such. And so I would also like to invite the residents to walk through it as well, so they can have a complete understanding. I don't know all the measurements. I haven't measured it, but certainly if we could all go there and walk it together, it may change people's perspectives.
Right. Good. Thank you.
I have a question around your Class B liquor license. What are your thoughts around that? What's your plan?
So it's pretty common when you look at Warren Valley, the Waukesha Gun Club, Buck Rub. for social activities. I mean, clearly, separation. You know, you're not having a glass of wine and shooting. You're clearly done for the day. Your gun, your ammunition is in the vehicle, and you come and have a social drink or two.
Makes sense. Then the question around lead. Is there any lead abatement plan or anything to that effect?
There is. I don't want to speak prematurely on that because I haven't. I have reached out to a company to look at it. One of the contingencies is to have it examined, but I certainly will do that. But I need further information before I can comment on it.
Okay. Makes sense.
But I can't emphasize enough. I mean, my plan comes here. The emphasis I want to put on the indoor range. You know, indoor rifle, indoor pistol, soundproof. We're talking about cement walls. We're talking about a spancrete roof. Baffle system, ventilation, completely secure, no safety concern at all. You know, I do want to pursue the idea of limited outdoor range usage. I think it's a uniqueness. I think done right, there will be no problems, and we will certainly manage it accordingly. There'll be safety measures. You can only imagine what I'll put in place. I mean, that's what we did at the range. We're all law enforcement here, and that's how we will run it. It's certainly. I've been in this community for 28 years. My reputation is important to me. I worked very hard to build a reputation, and I certainly am not going to let a gun range taint my reputation or my family's reputation.
Could you restate the hours and the blocks of time?
Yes.
And is that just outdoor limitations? Because the indoor could be unlimited. Is that how that works?
Well, no, nothing's unlimited. I'll share that with you. But I looked at the. Here's the conditional use permit, and it says Tuesdays 12 p.m. to 8:30, Wednesdays 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Thursdays 12 to 8:30, Saturday 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., first and third Saturdays of each month, and Saturday 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., second and fourth Saturday of each month. You know, my proposal is 4 3-hour blocks, never to exceed 3 hours. They will be managed accordingly. We will not, one of the comments that said, well, you may have more shooting, we will not have more shooting. We'll have, you know, if we define 6 lanes, that will be 6 lanes of shooting. It'll be done safe. We will have lane markers. We won't have a crowded group there shooting randomly or anything like that. That will not take place. And then I would work with the community, have an advisory group. You know, they could come, we could talk every month and say, you know, for this month, we have weddings. Let's do that 3-hour block maybe this day and really be flexible. And I will work with the community. I gave them my word several times when I've been on their doorsteps, when I've met with them at the Delafield Brew House. My word is my word. I will not deviate from it. It will not exceed 4 hours. I heard discussions like, well, you'll implement the Range Safety Act, I believe it's called, where you get unlimited shooting. I will not, definitely will not. It will not change. It'll never be back here asking for additional hours. It will stay like that. And again, I will work with the community to make sure it fits the community on the times that they agree to. And then with respect to the indoor range, the hours that we're proposing are Monday approximately 9 to 9. It's very similar to the range we ran at WCTC. So 9 to 9, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then close the range on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, close the range at 9 p.m. and then stay open an extra hour. And on Sunday, 9 to 6, everything closes.
Brian, did you refer to yourself as a friendly foe? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that was a good term. The other one that comes to mind is the devil you know, because what we're dealing with as a plan commission as well as a city is we don't know what the Heartland Sportsman's Club has in store for us. We don't know if they'll ever open, or we don't know if they're going to have a fundraising effort that's going to allow them to do the improvements per the CUP and open full blast next week. And so that's something that adds some perspective to what we have to deal with as far as consideration. So when I heard the initial words described to me of what this proposal was, it led with the indoor range, and I was like, thank God. You know, everyone's going to say hallelujah, but because that's one of the things that came out. I've been involved with the Sportsman Club stuff for the last 12 years. But that's one of the things that came out is that unless you put a dome over it, you're not going to have 100% solid guarantee that an idiot's not going to shoot a gun off and have a bullet leave the range. I mean, I think you'll even attest to that. But given all the appropriate precautions and a safely designed range, physics doesn't lie. I mean, you're going to, if you've got people under control and they're pointed in the right direction and they're being monitored, the bullets won't leave. So I believe in all that, but, you know, and I appreciate the noise aspect and the reduced hours. I mean, these are things that are all improvements over what the specter is that we're facing with the conditional use that we're currently under. And so I'm intrigued by your willingness to entertain the hours of an outdoor range as well as its absolute need. So you'll probably hear that again from all of us. But it'd be, I think it's a big win if there was no specter of outdoor noise at all. But what we have in place right now is one that provides, like I said, the opportunity for this to turn on at any given point. With what I and I think the fellow Plan Commission members would agree to say is a suboptimal plan that we were kind of compelled into based on how the court system resolved itself. I don't think we got everything we wanted. I don't think Heartland Sportsman's Club did either, but that's where we're at. So I see a big potential for improvement here. I'd like to see this in some fashion advance with some back and forth with the city. That's just my feedback. And a couple things that were brought up, just I'll mention. Like any business plan of operation, I mean, we're going to be looking at the traffic pattern, how headlights roll across the terrain, where berms would be needed to keep headlights from hitting town residents or anybody in the perimeter. And we do take into consideration the surrounding communities. Anybody who's interested in being notified that may not be otherwise, it's real easy on our website to go in the upper right-hand corner and hit the Notify Me icon and sign up for Plan Commission meeting agenda notes, just so that you'll be notified of upcoming agenda meetings, Plan Commission meetings and their agendas. But anyway, I appreciate your willingness to show some flexibility and interested to see how this goes.
And very amenable, and I convey that every single time I've said, you know, I did put myself in their shoes, and I'm very reasonable and very amenable, and I think it could be a win-win for everyone. And so that's the approach that I'm taking, and I won't waver from that. It's not going to change. If it's approved, I'm not going to change it. I'm not coming back for something. I'm not going to push the envelope. That's just not me, and I don't want to be characterized like that either. What we agree to will certainly be followed to the nth degree.
I'm intrigued by your boldness of inquiring about lead remediation as well. And with a history as long as this is, I think there's not going to be any pleasant surprises.
Yeah, I knew coming in here, you know, I was warned, but I just, you know, I think it's a win-win, and I'm looking for the opportunity, more or less.
When you speak of environmental, when you mentioned on the slide, I think you said, you know, the traffic pattern, which is great, but are you going to do a soil? Are you going to do any borings?
Yes.
And get so get a report there.
I am.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not able to talk about it right now.
Yep, that's fine.
Certainly, that's a high degree of expertise, and certainly I need somebody. I'll probably bring somebody in that can articulate.
You'll do like a phase 1 or something of,
yes.
of the okay.
Yep.
I have a couple comments. Like Tim, I've been involved here since 2010 with this gun club. And I feel what you're doing at the outdoor range could be done safely, but I don't think I can go along with it for the reasons of noise. Looking at this we're looking at this as a new entity coming into a subdivision, and noise to me is going to be an issue. And then the other issue that we've dealt with in the past was fencing. Do you have any plans for fencing?
Yeah. Put a fence around the outdoor part of the shooting.
Okay.
Yep, the range. Don't want anybody walking into it, but yeah, that is the plan.
Okay.
Mayor, being a newer member, I have maybe a question for commissioners about the situation. Is it something I should ask now, later, or?
I I'm sorry, Dan, restate the question?
I just have a question. I'm not have all the history I've read up. I understand enough to be dangerous, but I had a question maybe for the committee of the past. If I'm understanding the situation right, is that appropriate to ask now?
Sure.
Yeah, it's not directly related to them.
Yeah,
but,
no. As long as we stay on this topic, we're
yeah,
good.
no, I'm not going off topic. In understanding, if I understand right, if I put myself in a citizen's shoes out here, it's a big gamble. Because Tim, you alluded to it. If these guys walk away tomorrow and say, no, we decided not to, then the existing ownership could bring this thing alive in 2 weeks with much worse conditions and something that isn't safe and isn't loud. It's a gamble for a citizen in that regard. Am I reading this right? Because they have the legal right.
Go ahead, Jim.
They have the legal right to do something, the current owners I'm seeing.
So why don't I address that issue or that question? In November of 2020, we issued a conditional use permit to the Heartland Sportsman's Club, and it allows a phased reopening. That was something we didn't want, but it was something that ultimately we had to include in there. We also had a lead remediation program that got struck as well. But in any event, under the existing conditional use permit, range by range or activity by activity can move forward one at a time. And there are certain improvements that have to be made under the conditional use permit, and they have to be made, and then the city has to certify that they've been completed the way they're supposed to, and then they can begin those activities. So I'm just, I think it unlikely that everything would explode at once. It's more likely that if they do go ahead, the club, that it would be on a phased basis, because that was a big issue that they wanted at that time. So the situation that you now have is the discussion tonight is a conceptual, this is my idea sort of thing, and if the public isn't familiar, we do that all the time. That's part of what the Plan Commission does. Come in and make a pitch as to what you're thinking about before you go through an application process and get some feedback as you're getting tonight. The conditional use permit that was issued it can be revised or modified at the request of the applicant, but it has to go through a public hearing process reviewed by the Plan Commission and approved by the Common Council. However, there's one critical provision in the existing conditional use, and it says the conditional use cannot be assigned, all right? So the reason, that's significant because if you could simply assign the conditional use, anyone could come in and ask for a modification. So that was put in there, and it was accepted by the club, and so that gives the city a real ability to control. You can waive that, okay? You can, as a part of the modification, you could allow an assignment. Again, you got to go through the public hearing process, but that provision is in there, in addition to all of the particular uses of the ranges and the sports shooting clays and so on and so forth. So Amy and I, we've talked about this as well as other staff members, and there really are several avenues that can be followed here. Based on the input that we received from the public tonight and the comments from the Plan Commission members, there could be a request to a formal application to amend the conditional use permit. All right? If that is submitted with all of the plans and so on, it goes through the public hearing process, recommendation, and eventually goes to Common Council. There was a comment made during the public comment section that we had rezoned the property. Well, we didn't rezone the property. What the city did was the city repealed that section of the zoning code that allowed sports shooting ranges as a conditional use permit. And the reason we did that, among other reasons, was because a number of years ago, the law on conditional use permits was changed, so that if the current status is if there's a conditional use application submitted and you meet the conditions of the code and any reasonable conditions that are imposed by the city, you must grant the conditional use permit. And the city did not want more outdoor sports shooting ranges. So rather than giving someone the opportunity to come in and ask for a CU, we repealed that section. So it wasn't a rezoning, but that section is gone. So the first option then would be to request an amendment or modification to the conditional use permit. That's what was talked about tonight. The second would be to request an amendment to the code, to add a provision in the code that would allow this type of activity, and you'd basically recreate a conditional use permit process. And then the third option is there is a provision in the zoning code that one of the permitted uses is amusement establishments, including bowling alleys, gymnasiums, swimming pools, skating rinks, indoor tennis, handball activities, and indoor theaters. There's also a provision that says the Plan Commission can review a request to consider a similar use, and if you think it's similar, it would have to be approved by the council. But if that were the request, that's clearly would be wholly indoor. If there was, in other words, if they said, I want to make an application, here's my proposal, and we think this is a use similar to what's allowed in subparagraph 3B, you'd have to review that, but that would clearly be limited indoor, okay? And then the fourth is essentially take no action. I mean, if there's a request for an amendment, you have to go through the process. If there's a request to amend the zoning code, you don't have to do that because that's up to the initiated by the Plan Commission or the Common Council. So again, this is conceptual. You've got feedback. The applicant can make a request to amend this, modify the CU. They can make a request that you consider this to be similar to indoor facilities that are permitted within this district, or they can ask that you amend the zoning code to allow this type of use, or they can do nothing. Okay?
Yeah, I think that helps. And I guess, so Brian, just some feedback, since it's conceptual. If it was my neighborhood and it's already there, I'd probably be like, okay, keep it all indoors. I'm in a subdivision, I don't want the noise. That's my criteria. That might be the feedback. And for the citizens, as I hear this, I think of, think of the alternative. What's the risk on the other side, right? Which seems pretty significant. So it's a tough situation as I'm a newer member. I don't have the answers, but that everything indoor seems like that would probably help. Then there's the environmental, making sure you do the phase ones and the lighting and all the things that were brought up. But that's why I asked at the beginning, how critical is that outdoor, right? Because I bet you if that's not part of your plan, it's a lot easier for local people to see that this might be the better alternative to what their other options are, right?
I have a question. Is this something that you have a possibility of a time span for the general public or membership to use your range at your indoor range? Is there off hours you would make available to law enforcement agencies to come in for training or anything of that nature?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we are all former or current Tom's a police chief, and as a dean, I trained anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 officers on an annual basis. And I will make that concession, absolutely.
Okay, good.
Okay. Any other feedback for the applicant? All right, any questions that you guys might have?
Gentlemen, any questions? You good?
Can I just add to Attorney Hammis was talking about how one of the options is to amend the conditional use. If there is an amendment to the conditional use, then all property owners, neighboring property owners within 300 feet of the property boundaries would get an individual notice in the mail of the public hearing date. And then it will also be in the general paper. Like Mr. Eicher said, that you can also go onto the city's website and subscribe to Notify Me, and you'll get an alert of any agenda that would come up in the future.
All right. Well, great. Thank you very much.
Everyone. Appreciate your time.
Yes.
You got it right.
Okay, so now we're going to play another little move on the agenda. And we are going to move to 12, Zoning and Ordinance Revision A. Discussion and action regarding text amendment to the City of Delafield zoning code specific to signage.
Probably supposed to safely remove the hardware, right? Delete your thing.
Thanks.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
not yours. It's my packet.
The thing was, they all just had to raise their hand and say support, which cut out 20 feet.
The 12A.
12A. Oh, it's only one.
I just want to find the text amendments.
Nobody wants to hear about
I'm
the
actually
text
going to put
amendment.
this up.
Of course not.
Okay, the room just emptied out.
Is something you said? Are you
All right, text amendments for signage. So we talked about this briefly at the last meeting. Hold on, I'm not sharing the right document. Okay, so hopefully you're looking and you've seen the information in your packet. I'm actually showing a different document on the screen because it might just be a little bit easier to discuss. So we talked about signage. There was a discrepancy or inconsistency within the signage section. So if you were to go to signs permitted in several business districts, specifically CBD1, CBD2, CBD3, B1, and B1A, there was a provision that signage has to comply with setbacks. However, and then in the bold on the screen, the Plan Commission may grant an exception to the sign setback requirement where such an exception would not interfere with traffic safety or would be inconsistent with the objectives and purpose of this chapter. But then when you go to the next paragraph, which is signs permitted in B2, B3, B4, B5, B6, and M1, which are districts that have, usually have signage involved with them, it does not have that provision for exceptions at the end. It just says that signs shall be subject to the setback rules applicable to building in the zoning district where located. So I am proposing text amendments that would make the two sections consistent. However, in talking to Attorney Hammes, he did suggest that we change the word exception to waiver. As you know, several months ago, we adopted language for special exceptions, and the two terms are very, very similar, and the process is different. So I do think that's a really good suggestion. Right. We'll do it here for now, and if we find other sections where exception is used, we'll probably move those over into waivers. He also suggested that we require that any waivers be recorded with Waukesha County Register of Deeds. So in both of those paragraphs, I add any waiver granted by the Plan Commission under this provision shall be recorded with Waukesha County Register of Deeds. And then just to add something that's not necessarily critical, but it didn't make sense to me when I was reading through the signage section. There's another section for the Expressway District. And in the Expressway District, there are some exceptions to the general rules stated above. And one of them is the number of signs. The other one is the sign area where a premise has more than one occupant, and the height there's a different standard. And then there's a section that says other on-premise signs. And then it just says all other on-premise signs shall conform to the provisions of and be limited by the requirements of subsection 2 of this section. So I wanted to add 2 and 3 because there's really two main paragraphs that have regulations for signage. So I did add both of the subsections, and then I changed all other on-premise signage to just other provisions because I don't think it has to do with different signs. It has to do with any other provision other than what's specifically accepted or exempted in the Expressway District has to comply with the typical standards. I hopefully that makes sense. So I did change that one paragraph, and that's all. Any questions?
So yeah, to summarize that last piece that you fed us.
Again.
We're not granting ourselves the ability to grant waivers for the other sign provisions.
No.
We're talking about location of the signs and waiving the setback as it applies to some zoning, but not all. And we're just making it consistent across.
Yeah, and then this other one, it's just really cleaning it up instead of it saying other premise signs, because I don't think that's really what the intent was. It's saying other provisions. So unless you were talking about area, height, or more than one occupant, you have to meet all of the provisions of those other 2 paragraphs. And in those paragraphs, it says the Plan Commission may grant a waiver from setback.
But so we're only enabling waivers for setback,
Setbacks.
not for sign, not
Yeah.
for the size or, okay.
No, just know that in the Expressway District, there is you can, like a freestanding sign can, shall not exceed 200 square
Right.
feet. It's more restrictive otherwise.
Okay.
We're looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendments as presented for all the reasons that we talked about last week, or
I'll
last
second.
month.
I'll second.
Okay.
And that will need to be a recommendation to
And a
council.
recommendation to council to adopt the ordinance.
All right, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Good job, Amy.
Okay. Now we're going to move to 10A, DLC 0804994021, 2863 Heritage Drive, owner Walmart Real Estate Business Trust, applicant Lynn Parsons, PB2 Architecture and Engineering. Applicant is requesting site plan and appearance review approval and permanent signage to replace the existing signage on the Walmart property and paint portions of the exterior of the building.
Okay, so we also talked about Walmart at a previous meeting. They're proposing to remove and install new signage on and off-site. In April, they came in and they were going to paint certain sections of the building blue. And it was determined that the blue would need to be included in the signage area calculation because it was accenting the words around it. And there was a previous decision several years ago that was very similar, but an orange color. So we did have a meeting with the applicant after that meeting just to clarify those provisions because they would not have met the sign standards if they would have included the blue. So they have agreed to remove all of the blue. They are going to be repainting and cleaning up the building. It will, the coloring is shown in the rendering. It's kind of hard to see here, but it'll be similar to what's out there now. Very natural colors. The signage is going to be replaced in kind. The letters will be white. They will have their Walmart, I don't know what they call it, sunburst. That will be yellow at the entry. They are just removing the term lawn and garden and using outdoor, and then they must be removing their vision center because they're removing the vision center sign. The signs otherwise do comply with the code now. They will be illuminated, internally illuminated. And then at the last meeting, it was mentioned that the sign that faces I-94 has needs some repair. It's not part of this project, and to recommend some trimming as well so that you can actually see the sign from 94 better. So in the recommendation to approve, I do say in there that
Contingent
the
upon?
freestanding, subject to the freestanding sign facing I-94 being repaired to the satisfaction of the city planner prior to the installation of any new signage. It's also recommended that vegetation be trimmed so that the sign remains visible from I-94. And then, as always, the light intensity of the sign shall not exceed 40-foot candles when measured with the standard light meter held perpendicular to the sign face at a distance of 10 inches.
So contingent upon the sign being repaired to the planner's satisfaction as well as trees trimmed?
The trees is a recommendation. I don't know how much control or how easy that is. And if they don't want their sign visible, I guess they don't want their sign visible.
Why do they care if they trim it or not?
So it's just a recommendation that they may want to consider doing that, but they need to repair the sign before they can install the new signage per the recommendation.
So just repair?
Repair.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the site plan improvements as presented in the packet, contingent upon the repair of the I-94 sign to the city planner's satisfaction prior to the installation of any new signage, and anything they want to do to clean it up is fine with me as far as vegetation.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. All right, we will move to 10B, DLC 0803-011, 2440 Milwaukee Street, owner Delafield Realty LLC, applicant Monica James, Consolidated Development Services for Darden. Applicant is requesting approval for a permanent sign specification, a pylon sign to accommodate the new Olive Garden development. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and as previously, we've got a couple people on the phone as well, representatives from CDS, the signage company, and Darden as well.
And your name?
My name is Joe Mayer. I'm with Kimley Horn, and we are the civil engineer on the project.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to zoom in here. Remind me to let the applicants speak through Zoom. So I don't think we need to go into any great detail on this other than, you've approved the Olive Garden operation previously, and right now we're just down to the signage. They're working through their engineering and fees and stuff with the city. But based on the comments at the last meeting and the concerns of Smiley Barn, they did relocate the sign. You can see the old proposed location to the west, which is south of that gravel pad, has now been relocated to the far east corner. It's still within the setback area. I can't read the measurement on there, but I think it's like, it's a couple feet further than the existing sign, or the one that they previously proposed. It's in the similar location to where the Perkins sign was, but probably even more conforming. The height is the same, the style of the sign is the same, and they did in the packet submit those revised renderings that shows more visibility to Smiley Barn. And this, this approval would be subject to the text amendments being adopted as
By the Common Council.
by the Common Council.
I have a question. Is the flagpole going to remain in that area also?
The flagpole is being removed as a part of the project.
So you won't have any flagpole at all?
I do not believe there's one proposed, not currently as a part of the site plan.
I see Courtney is waving her head, there's not one proposed.
Do you want the flagpole?
Go pick it up.
I will.
It's huge.
Yeah, you can bring it to my house. I'll put it on my lawn. Matter of fact, I'm looking for
It's
one.
massive.
You'll see it from here.
You see it? Yes.
I think
you will.
everyone's happy on this, unless
Yeah.
you've got some questions. We'd be looking for a
Yeah,
motion.
I'll move that what do we accept? What are we accepting?
Contingent upon Common Council approval of the
Text
amendments
I can go, let's see here.
and published.
There's a little more, can you read it? This is my recommendation. Motion to approve the pylon sign in the revised location subject to Common Council adopting the text amendments related to signage. The applicant shall record a restriction with Waukesha County Register of Deeds that notates the waiver approved and conditions of this approval. No sign shall result in internal, external illumination of more than 40-foot candles when measured with the standard light meter held perpendicular to the sign faced at a distance of 10 feet from the sign.
Contingent on Common Council approval and published.
I move that.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion?
Yeah, hey, thanks for working with the neighbors.
Yeah,
Guys, people are getting along. I think it's going to be a good relationship.
I wanted to say the same thing. We really appreciate you working with them, and the comments earlier, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll speak on behalf of the people on the phone, and they can chime in, but I know we're really happy to be here and excited to get the project going.
So everyone wants to know when you're opening.
I'd hate to set a schedule for the contractor, but I know that they're looking to start in, I think, demolition work in August. And Courtney, do you have any idea on opening times?
And you can just unmute yourself if you can. Or I can do it. Okay, I just unmuted you, Courtney.
Okay, I need to check right quick. If you give me just a second, I can let you know those dates. But Joe is correct. We are trying to get started demolition in August. We're wanting to get all the site work completed before November, before all of the concrete and asphalt mills shut down. So we're looking to expedite this as much as we can. So it looks like our construction, we're trying to be open early next spring. So we're looking around April to be open.
Good to know. Just stating we get asked, so it's nice to hear. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Alrighty, we will move to 10C, DLC 0807985-021-3875 Kettle Court East, Delafield, owner Kettle Court Circle LLC, applicant John Barker. Applicant seeks approval for a modified tree cutting and mitigation plan that exceeds the site plan approval plans approved in October of 2019 and further modified by the Planning Commission November of 2020. The approved plans were part of the site development for Akron Manufacturing. Amy?
Okay, so I'm sure you remember this property. The applicant received approval in 2018 to improve the subject property as a manufacturing operation. It was vacant prior to that. That included new parking, retaining walls, stormwater, and landscaping. They did go through several revisions on the final site plan, including the retaining walls and the landscaping, with final approval in October of 2019. At that time, they were required to replace or mitigate 817 caliper tree inches. And they did submit a plan for that, but it was determined that was not practical. It was excessively dense for the site, and so the trees that were proposed would not have survived. So then they came back and proposed an amendment, and it was, at that time, it was also determined that the applicant cleared a portion of the site that was not previously approved as part of the plan behind the building, which gives them, whether that was the purpose or not, it's a clear view to Pewaukee Lake. That cleared area, extra cleared area, consists of 16,500 square feet. In 2020, the Plan Commission approved a modified tree mitigation plan, which included tree plantings on and off site. They own another property on the same road, and so they were given some credit for a few trees. And then the Plan Commission also approved half of the required in lieu fee amount, which was $16,537.50. He did pay that fee amount. Then later, the city administrator allowed the applicant to pay an additional $1,875 rather than planting 5 trees, which you can see on this approved plan that's on the screen. My cursor's in that area. That was a snow storage area. We felt that the trees could have been planted, but agreed that because it is his dumping zone, otherwise the site gets pretty tight, that he could pay the $1,875. He has not paid that amount yet. In fact, based on his revised plan, he is asking that the Plan Commission waive his requirement to pay it. So if you look in the staff report, the total trees removed required a replacement of 1,249 inches of trees, and then they ended up replacing or proposing to replace 1,028.5 inches. Either way, what his newest plan, one of the conditions of that approval was that he submitted an as-built plan. So he did that, and that is on the screen now. It actually yields more inches than what was approved originally. So instead of the 1028.5 with in lieu fees, he's proposing 1,043.5 inches of trees. And because of that, he would like the 1,875 additional in lieu fees to be waived. A few things that the Plan Commission should consider, and I would like for you to act on, is whether or not the as-built plan is acceptable. There are less overall deciduous and evergreen trees, but the reason why the inches are greater is that the trees, the diameter of the trees ended up being larger than the original plan, which was 2.5 inches. Some of them are 3, 4, or 5 inches, I think, in diameter. The other thing that he's not complying with is the location of the trees. The original plan had it covering a larger area because it was clear cut. And now he's got, he still has some open zones, and the trees are very dense in certain areas compared to this plan where it was a little bit more widespread. So my recommendation is for you to review the proposed as-built plan and determine if any additional plantings, in lieu payment, or enforcement action is required before the file is closed, keeping in mind he has not paid the $1875.
Mr. Barker.
There we go. That plan right there shows, according to Mike Davis, the guy from Insight, what the trees would look like full grown, I believe. He's showing them like very...
Yeah, he's got canopies.
In this it's showing canopies. So when Amy panned to the last one, it just showed like dots, like, there we go, like dot, 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 dot. This area is a really topographical, challenging area. It goes from this elevation here at about 1,105 feet at grade right where the parking lot is. It goes down to like 1030 or something. We're talking 70 feet down. We went in there with a brand new cat with a 36-inch auger, and we were hitting rocks everywhere. So there are going to be some spots where trees are not in the spots where he originally planned to be. I put 10 really nice flowering crabs in there that look really pretty. There are a lot of pine trees because I like pine trees. They're green all year round. I know what Amy's saying about the fact that some of them are densely populated really close, but you know what? That's natural. I mean, I know SEH's property, they got trees that are here, one right here, one right here. So that's how it is naturally wise. I would have paid the $1875. I had no problem paying that. That's a far cry from the $16,000 that I cut the check on before the end of the year because I want to make it, obviously paid you guys. But the $1875, I said, can we hold off on that until we get this approved? And Tom said, well, yeah, work it out with Amy. Well, I've been trying to work it out with Amy, and she presented this whole thing very well. I have a little discrepancy with some of the stuff she said because I did plant more than what it was, and I didn't actually get credit for the 4-inch and the 5-inch. I only got credit for the 2.5. I mean, I only did 2.5 by all the pines that I planted, not the 4-inch that they were, and some of them were 3, some were 5. That's it. I mean, if you guys want, I'd love to have you come out. You look at it, check it out, see if it is something you guys say, oh, this is nice looking, or hey, wow, this doesn't look very good. But I can honestly say that everybody that comes to the building is enamored with the beauty of it. It looks gorgeous. It does have beautiful views of the lake. It has amazing stone. I mean, there's a $500,000 retaining wall there. I don't know of anybody in the city that put something up like that. I mean, it's a marquee on the end of that street. Everybody knows it. Everybody says, wow. That is an amazing looking building. It is beautiful. And I actually put up another retaining wall along the side just because I didn't want to get the bullets shot at me in case the gun club opens. So I did that on my own. And if you guys want to persecute me for that, that's fine. But I mean, it looks beautiful. It's a nice wall, and bullets don't go through concrete or through stones that are 3 feet deep and 8 foot tall. But that's it. I think everything's all good.
So the 1875 dispute now is over the fact that there's more caliper inches than what was initially agreed to before.
But it wasn't. But it's not necessary.
Does that seem to reconcile itself? Does that seem to be the right trade-off?
Yeah, the 1875 was for 5 trees that were supposed to go, and it was 5 trees at 2.5 caliber inches each, which would have been 12.5 caliber inches times $150. So yeah.
I'll just say my feeling on this whole thing is the fact that things got out of order, right? I mean, things were cut before they were approved, or things didn't get, and so I don't like being in a dispute over any of this. And my whole end result, as far as closing the file, in my personal preference, would be to make sure that we're just meeting the spirit of the ordinance and not satisfying, cell X23 on the spreadsheet to make sure. And it seems like it does. So I'm just weighing in that. I'd like this to be over, and I don't think that the $1,900 in either pocket makes a difference to me. The city loved to have it, but we could say that to everybody, and I think you've got the inches here to make it work. So I'm good with where it is.
I'm just feeling the pressure of Park and Recs Commission because they want me to count trees on this commission. Trees up and trees down.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'm feeling vulnerable right now, Tim.
I counted a lot of trees myself.
Like I'm wondering if
I
any
even had
Park
to
and
show
Recs
them.
commissioners are watching right now. That's what I'm thinking. But
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Do you have a path there and back on your north side there?
I don't actually know. My neighbor Ben to the east has a Frisbee golf course, and he put paths in there. I don't have any paths on my property.
Just seems like it'd be a nice walk.
It would be, I like the idea. I think we talked about that last time. I thought that would
Put
be
some
really.
wildflowers in there.
Well, it is all wildflowers. It's really pretty. They've got yellow ones with little black centers, and the red ones are popping, and the blue ones are popping. So, I mean, I got 7 pounds more. I put already 7 pounds of more. This stuff's $150 a pound.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's good stuff. I mean, but I'm waiting for it to be optimal. We didn't have a lot of rain, so now we got some rain. I'm gonna go out there and scratch the dirt a little bit more. I'm gonna put 7 more pounds down. It'll look amazing. So it'll look pretty.
I'll have to make sure to come take a look.
So John, now you know more about our processes and tree counting than probably nearly anybody in the city.
I kind of do. it's a nightmare. You want to know what
Get
today
the
is?
order, get the order right.
Yeah. Get what?
I said, do it in the right
And
order.
don't
Right
cut them
order.
down without asking, right?
Well, I will say, and I'll take this to my grave. When I talked to Roger, he's like, John, I'm serious. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, really and truly, it was bad. But you know what? You know what today is, Ken? It is my birthday. One hell of a birthday present.
See, I told you.
My last
I
one
told
in
you,
the
he's a
40s,
good
too.
salesman. You see, I told you.
Yeah, well, I had to show my license last night because the girl didn't believe me. It was Kyle's birthday last night, 18 years old, so I got a raise yesterday too, so that was good.
All right, do we have a motion out there?
So Amy, the caliper inches that are on site now balance with what's required.
Yes, and so,
It exceeds, actually, correct?
to John's point, so he planted bigger trees than
Than the
originally
2.5
required, so he
inch.
got more credit for the deciduous trees. He planted bigger evergreens. The evergreens out there are, a lot of them are pretty big. He can't get credit for having bigger caliper inches because you get 2.5 inches of credit per 6 feet tall tree. So those are limited in no matter how big they are. But the deciduous trees were planted bigger than what was required. So now he is over the requirement.
He's over the requirement.
Motion to close this file and waive the fee and move forward.
I'll second.
All right, any other discussion? Does it need to go to
It
common?
does not need to go to common council.
Otherwise, I would have said that.
Please don't. Please don't
We're all
cut
having a
any.
good time now.
Please don't cut any more trees, John. Please don't cut any more
Someone
trees.
second.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention passes.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, happy
Thanks for
birthday.
everything.
Happy birthday.
38?
He used the birthday thing in March.
40?
Yeah, 38 would be great. I like that. I don't
come to the Park and Recs Commission next month. And explain this with me, please.
I'll be all right. Thank you. You guys did great tonight with the whole gun club deal too. That's
Okay.
I wouldn't
Trying.
wanna be sitting in your
Trying.
shoes, so. Thank you, guys.
Take care,
Have a
John.
great night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Alrighty, we'll move on to new business, 11A, DLC 0621-015-3601 Trinity Lane. Owner Michael and Ann Gagliano, applicant Pete Etchmeyer, Colby Construction. Applicant is requesting approval of a boathouse.
Are they here?
Applicant here.
No, I don't know. There's somebody on Zoom, a phone
Okay.
number. Oh, no, that phone number's gone. So I don't think they're here. Do you want me to go ahead and give the staff report?
Yep.
They should.
Okay, so the property is on the east shore of Upper Neshota Lake. It's zoned RL1A residential lake property with an environmental corridor overlay. It is planned for lake residential as well. It is part of a planned unit development. The Lake Welfare Committee approved the proposed boathouse on June 9th, subject to the submittal of plumbing and electrical plans, picture of the boathouse, and a list of plants included in the rain garden. They have accomplished all of that. I did reach out to the chairperson of that committee. The property is 2.1 acres, and it's, let's see, single-family home was recently constructed. It does not show up on the image on the screen. In the planned development, the construction of the buildings are limited to a building envelope. with the exception of a boathouse, gazebo, and pier per lot, and then it ties to the, and subject to conservation easement requirements or subdivision restrictions. So normally, we don't get into the subdivision restrictions. That's for the developer or the homeowners association to regulate. But in this case, I do believe it was tied to the PUD. And on this property, there are provisions specific to the location, and I think they're close to that. It's not clear whether or not they're removing any trees, but I would rely on the developer to review the location to see if it's in compliance with that standard. But boathouses are also limited to 14 feet wide by 22 feet deep, and the proposed boathouse is actually 17 feet wide. So I do believe that they need to shrink the width of the boathouse. Other than that, though, according to Scott over there, the boathouse does comply with all of the dimensional standards of the ordinance. They're proposing LP smart side and stone with composite decking. The rails and rail posts will consist of composite material and horizontal cable. The boathouse will be gray.
Matching the house?
It does not match, the color doesn't match the house, I don't think,
Well, it doesn't have to
though.
be the same, just complementary.
So the house is a beige color, and then
Beige and white.
the stone, should, they don't actually show what kind of stone is being used, but I'm going to assume it's complementary because it's got like some gray and tan tones to it. They are proposing to install an 81.4 square foot rain garden north of the boathouse, and then a swale to connect the boathouse to the rain garden, or the drainage to it. They are proposing quite a variety of native plant species, so I don't think that is an issue at all. There will be a downcast light on the lake side of the boathouse above the overhead door and south side of the boathouse where an entrance door is proposed. I do want to reach out to them and just get some clarity on what light they're proposing. They have a couple different options, so I don't know if they're different on each side or what exactly is going on there. So the Plan Commission shall consider the location, architectural design, color, material to be used, and compatibility with the principal structure, rain, water remediation, buildings on adjacent properties in the lakeshore setting, and any neighbor comments and lake welfare recommendations. And specific consideration should be given to the visual impact of the boathouse from the lake and from adjoining property owners. Looking at GIS and their proposal, it does not appear that the boathouse will cause any obstructions to the adjacent property's view of the lake. They both have pretty
You said
dirt
one
views.
number 17 was too big. What, can you please go over that again?
Why? So they're proposing a 17-foot wide boathouse, which does comply with the city's ordinance. However, the restrictions of the subdivision plat don't allow boathouses to be more than 14 feet wide.
That's the subdivision.
That doesn't make any sense.
So the reason, well, hold on, I just want to back up. The reason why I believe that's in there is the property is corridor, and your ordinance does say that corridor is limited to a certain percentage or a certain area, and it does look like at the plan unit development, they limited construction to a certain building envelope with the exception of a boathouse. So I would, and I believe it says, and as required in the easements, it says conservation easement, and I could only find the subdivision restrictions, which the city does review as part of a PUD. So unless the developer has waived that and that's been modified.
They'll have to change the size of their boat.
Mr. Seidman, you're not by any chance the original developer of this, are you?
Oh, he is.
You can't testify.
And you
for
think
him.
both
Get this-
houses could be 14 foot wide?
Sorry. You waited an hour, 2 hours, wait, what are we, 2 hours?
When we did Mission Woods, the city actually was active in trying to limit the amount of building on the lake shore. And there's a conservation easement all the way across the frontage of that with the Waukesha County Land Conservancy. So it's a combination of the Land Conservancy and the developer and the city that we came up with that 14 feet.
And that is how, when I was reading the documents, it does appear that the city was directly involved in the regulations of the boathouse.
Is it
So we stepped on
fair,
our own foot.
aren't there, how many lots are in that group? Are there
8,
8, and how many of them are in the city?
all of them.
All of them, and how many of them have a boathouse now?
1 or 2? There are a couple.
I'm gonna,
Oh, yeah, there was one existing.
one existing.
there, And I think that was,
I know,
oh, maybe there's 2 now.
I can,
there's, for sure.
Well, a new, I guess I'm actually looking for how many are
I
new
don't know if
ones.
they're, I don't know if they comply. I mean, we had it in front of it. One of
Because
them
I'm
was
gonna
in front
guess
of
if
us.
we've approved any other boathouses up to
Yeah.
this point in
Yeah,
there,
we did.
they're
There's one at
17
Seminary
foot
Ridge.
wide.
I'm assuming Seminary Ridge is part of the same
That's correct.
thing. There's one at Seminary Ridge that was approved by us. I'm assuming they built it. I know they did.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I'm
he
gonna,
works with me.
I'm pretty confident it was per the boathouse code, which is
Code,
17
probably,
feet,
yeah.
and not this.
so there's and I don't know the answer to that,
Yeah,
but what I
don't
can
know if
tell
we
you
can
is,
assume that.
they don't look huge, so I have it on
I'm
the.
guessing, it's likely, but yeah, I don't know, I don't know.
I know.
Google Maps shows 2.
So here's one directly, hold on, not directly to the north, 2 to the north. See that, so I don't know the measurement, but it doesn't look huge.
That was the existing one. The
Okay.
one to the north. The one
And
to the
then-
south is the new one.
And what
Here?
did Lake Welfare approve? A 14-foot width or a 17-foot width?
They approved it as proposed.
17.
They approved it as
Which is,
17?
the boathouse code says
Because that's the
17.
boathouse code. See, and when you
They don't
write
have
those, you
access to
should
this
say per
information.
city Code.
What Amy
Never
dug
put a
up, they
number to it.
don't have access to that.
Yeah, I mean, I had to look at the, it's part of a PUD, so I had to look at the provisions of the PUD.
I've always wondered when or if those ever get caught. I don't think we have done that before. I don't think we've been able to catch it, so I don't know why we'd ignore it. Even if we didn't follow it on a previous boathouse.
I hear you, I hear you.
So, I mean, I would think we'd want to prove it per the 14-foot designation.
I agree.
If they want to make it wider, they have to come appeal it. and come
Does
back
it make
us
any
and
sense
figure
to,
out-
it sounds like
I
there
don't know
was,
if that boathouse is more than 14, so I'm measuring 15 and a half, but I'm measuring it
yeah.
from like the furthest rails of the deck, and and these can be off. So, I mean, it doesn't look huge.
Yeah, so I just, trying to understand this, so if is there an option to approve it as presented contingent upon
Yes.
them changing the requirement for the PUD? If not, they have to reduce it to 14 feet.
So what
Is
I
there a
have.
way to do that?
Well, what I have in here is a motion to approve, subject to the boathouse being reduced in size so that it complies with the Mission Woods subdivision restrictions or any amendments to said restrictions that could give, I mean, if they really wanted to push it, they could go through a process to try to amend them. And subject to developer review and approval prior to the issuance of building, electrical, and plumbing permits. That I have in there, and I know that normally subdivision restrictions we don't necessarily have to get super involved with, but the location is part of the restriction. And the boathouse shall only be used for the storage of marine and accessory items used by the occupants of the lot. No human habitation is permitted. There shall be no plumbing inside the boathouse. The boathouse is limited to an outdoor hose bib and shower. They aren't proposing any plumbing, as far as I know. The rooftop deck railing shall not exceed 4 feet in height and be at least 50% open, and the illumination from lighting shall not extend beyond the property boundaries and shall only produce downcast light. The rain garden shall be constructed in compliance with the DNR publication. The title is in there. And the boathouse shall be placed on a code-compliant permanent foundation that extends below the frost line or be placed on a concrete slab.
Well, do we even want to take this up with them not being here?
Yeah, this isn't a simple one.
No, and I think they should be here to talk about this.
We'll have to once
Normally
again
we
go through
don't.
the plumbing part of it, but,
I don't want to slow them down, but I don't want to make it hinder them by 3 feet if we don't have to. I mean, if they should be here to explain what.
Yeah, I would like to hear their
I
explanation.
agree, yeah.
And I'm assuming they had no idea.
I'm sure they had no idea as well. Okay, so we probably should just deny it because they're not here?
Or could you
And have them do it
approve
again?
it as it's
Or I would
submitted,
table.
And if they don't like it, they can come back. It won't delay them.
Well, we don't take, we could postpone.
Delay action. We will not
Yeah,
take action on
I
it
wouldn't.
tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
And deny it.
So postpone it?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
that's pretty much our policy.
Yep.
They're not here.
Let's
I'd
postpone
amend
it
your-
to the July Planning Commission meeting.
Sure.
I'd amend your restrictions.
Do we want to vote on that, or are we just good with it? Okay. Sounds good. All right, we will move on to 11B DELC 0624001004, 34262 Valley Road, owner Stephen Cheryl Bath, applicant Jim Seatman. Accent Builders, applicant is requesting approval of boathouse.
I'm here.
Well,
You got the
we're
memo.
grateful that you were present at the same meeting that we talked about the other one on. Okay, hold on one second. And thank you for being patient while we get through this long meeting. So this property is also on Neshota Lake and zoned RL1A residential lake with a plan unit development and an environmental corridor overlay. It's planned for lake residential. They also presented at Lake Welfare in June, and it was approved. The railings have been modified. I think it was part of that meeting.
Correct.
And now there will be 4-inch by 4-inch posts with a small LED light on the top cap that will face down, and normal cables strung across the posts every 4 inches to meet safety code. Those were requirements of the lake welfare too. The property is 5.17 acres and it's located in the southeast corner of the lake. A single-family residence is being proposed at this time, correct? It's part of the project?
Basement's
It's part of a small, 3-lot
The last of
PUD.
three.
So it's the northernmost lot, and there's 2 to the south. According to these restrictions, because it also has the same deal where there's environmental corridor and it was subject to restrictions. The plat was limited to a designated pre-approved building envelope, except for a driveway, boathouse, and gazebo in compliance with city standards. So this one's a little bit easier to meet in that they just have to comply with the dimensional requirements of the city. And according to Scott, the boathouse does comply. The boathouse materials will consist of masonry veneer to match the home, with white painted LP Smart Trim wrap and doors and pre-finished aluminum deck railings. And again, they've agreed to the horizontal cables instead of main posts. They are proposing a nice size rain garden to the south of the boathouse where all of the rooftop drainage will drain. Again, a significant variety of grasses, sedges, rushes, and wildflowers. There will be downcast light at the entryway of the boathouse with LED voltage lighting. And they're proposing the lights on the caps of the posts and then also along the stairs, cup lights looking down. And I already told you what the Plan Commission needs to be considering for boathouses, so I won't repeat that. I'm recommending a motion to approve, subject to the following conditions. Residents shall be permitted and under construction in conjunction with the boathouse construction. You can't have an accessory structure without a principal structure, just to clarify. The applicant shall obtain building, electrical, and plumbing permits prior to commencing construction. The boathouse shall only be used for the storage of marine and accessory items used by the occupants of the lot. No human habitation is permitted. The boathouse is limited to an outdoor hose bib and shower and sink inside the boathouse. A toilet and indoor shower are prohibited. Just so you know, that condition is you can't have full bathroom facilities in a boathouse.
You can have water and sewer.
Yeah, so we can, if the other one comes back, we could modify that to give them an option to have one or the other, but not a full bathroom. 5, the rooftop deck railing shall not exceed 4 feet in height and be at least 50% open. Illumination from the lighting shall not extend beyond the property boundaries and shall only produce downcast light. Lighting is contingent upon city planner review and approval. I would recommend removing that. I did talk to Mr. Seatman. I wasn't sure if those top lights on the rails were downcast, but they are. The rain garden shall comply with the DNR standards, and the boathouse shall be placed on a code-compliant permanent foundation that extends below the frost line or be placed on a concrete slab.
Is that all supposed to be
Everyone's
in the
ready to
motion?
get out of here.
That is my recommended motion. So to simplify the
That is a
motion, you,
long motion.
I'll make a motion to approve eliminating item number 6 on your,
I would only eliminate the last sentence of item number 6.
I'll modify the motion then, to eliminate the last line of item number 6 and approve as is.
Second.
Okay, are you good with that, Sally?
I am. I
One.
have all that down.
Phew, I'm glad we didn't have to read it all again.
I think Sally writes, you put my staff recommendation there. Yep.
Okay.
She's super fast.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Passes.
Thank you. See you next
Thank you.
So I assume there was no limit on width in that.
No, it's because it was only compliant with, code compliant with the city standards was the requirement of the PUD.
Got it. Okay. We are now on 12, or on 13, report of city officials. Planning Commission meeting dates and deadlines. Regular meeting, July 28th, 2021. Regular meeting submittal deadline, July 13th, 2021. 13B, I'll refer you to correspondence. 13C, planner. Consideration of text amendment for the regulation of CBRFs.
So all we're doing here is, well, we talked about it at the last meeting, that the city may want to consider more specific provisions related to CBRFs, because right now it just says pretty much that they're allowed in any district, and then it's subject to there are some general standards in the CU section that the city can rely on, for sure. And so it was requested that I do a little research. So we looked at the city of Brookfield. They require, so there are I think it's the 8 units or less are allowed by right. So just know that's a statutory requirement. But beyond that, they are a conditional use, but you have to have at least 120,000 square feet of land in order to have one. The town of Brookfield only allows them by right 8 or fewer in most of their residential districts. Those are largely single family. Maybe some of those are 1 and 2 family. But then their multifamily districts that they have, RM1 and RM2, they allow them if they're 15 units or less, maximum. City of New Berlin, conditional use in one of the zoning districts, and then they're allowed as a permitted use in the institutional district, and then they have minimum size for each unit. They also do require 1 parking space per bed. Village of Heartland has CBRFs are permitted if under 8 residents, CUP if between 9 and 15. They don't allow more than 15. This may not be a perfect list. I think if we move forward, I can reach out to those municipalities and make sure we aren't missing anything. And of course, it's limited to those. But those are just some examples of what other municipalities do.
Are we just looking to come up with a number? Is that kind of our?
Well, maybe, because I know this is just a starting point. It is a complicated subject, so I don't think it's one of these things where you just take to a meeting and throw together some language and call it a day. I would start by looking at the different zoning districts that you may want to allow them in. I think that's a really good start. I mean, you might not want them on the late, I'm just saying, like if you don't want them in the RL districts or districts where you only have to have a certain lot size and you don't think that they're large enough for that.
So by right, you can have up to 8. That's a state mandated thing. So
it is. There are some exceptions, like you don't have to approve them if they're within a certain distance of each other.
I mean, I think as opposed to tying it to lot size, I think it would be appropriate. Maybe we could do that as well, but to get something that limits them to 8 in any single family residential district. I don't know why we'd deviate from that. A CBRF of greater than 8 in a residential district. I mean, when we get into, unless you get to like we could look at one of the multifamily, the higher density multifamily districts, but in a multifamily?
One building. Right next door is 4 families.
Yeah, so that doesn't
Yeah.
make sense either. So I mean, in any
What do we have
residential
down
district-
here?
What,
That's a residential.
Clearview?
Clearview,
Yeah.
there aren't very many.
I know
there's
it's
like
not many.
6 or
but
8, and
is
then
that
they've got
all it is?
approval to do this little cottages.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Right, I
those are
remember
only like
that.
2 or 4 beds each. I mean, I don't think
Okay.
they get up, I don't think they get past 20 on that property. I don't even
Yeah.
think they get that high.
I don't think they ever have been that high.
The highest number we saw in residential in our survey was 15, correct?
Yep. Well, like in the city of Brookfield, you have to have a certain square footage of lot, and then I didn't see a limitation on the number for that scenario.
Bigger city probably doesn't mind having more, not a lot.
I think, I don't know, is it a CBRF by Village Square by Pick and Save? I believe the reasoning for that, it was part of a business
Yeah, it's
business
non-residential
operation district,
zoning.
and it's a nurse, I
Yeah.
think that's a nursing home.
Nursing home and memory care.
Yeah.
So that's
So
what we're
it's part of
focused on though here, right?
not a nursing
Residential zoning,
Assisted
right?
living.
Assisted
Yeah.
living.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's assisted.
Okay, I thought it was nursing home. Sorry.
Doesn't the state look at assisted living, CBRFs, and nursing homes different?
They're different.
Because
Yes.
there are different definitions on that.
Yes.
So
They
this
are.
would be only focusing on the CBRF.
In,
Yep,
in
which-
residential zoning.
All right.
Well, right now, you have a conditional use for CBRFs, and they're allowed in any district. You could remove the CU option completely and force somebody to come in and propose a code amendment in order to allow them in a certain district. Or you could leave it there, and if you want to allow it in certain districts, like the business districts, or I think multifamily is still a question mark, you could just list out those particular districts as an option. Or you can add specific provisions regarding, again, like the parking and light, I don't know if you wanted to have lighting or size of building.
I have a
or-
thought, and that is that we've got I know we're having there's another meeting for this economic development committee that's
It
coming
would
up.
be booked, but yeah.
No, I'm not saying put it in there right now. But we're having recommendations for zoning and looking at different areas of the entire
Yeah.
city. I don't know why we wouldn't take the conditional use for CBRFs out entirely until, and let somebody propose a zoning amendment until we start taking next steps on.
Get ready.
on,
So-
and I'm not saying we don't, I mean, you can still put one in that's 8 in a residential area, and that's kind of what everyone thinks of when they think of CBRFs.
Yeah.
But if somebody has a really great idea, I mean, I don't know why we wouldn't be flexible with it and instead of trying to design it right now.
So help me understand, what's the summary of that? Are you saying?
I'm saying, why wouldn't we take
Wipe it out.
CBRFs anywhere in the city out as a conditional use?
And then they'd be automatically allowed by state statute up to 8.
Up to 8, which is what we have to do
And
anyway.
if somebody wants to come in to propose one within, let's just say, Highway 94 and C in that development, what would be the process? Does that have to, CBRF has to be then listed within the zoning, the B6 zoning, and if it's not in there, then they can't have it?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it would be from the short term, unless we came up with an idea. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Well, I think there might be, hold on.
That's
So-
a really good point.
Yeah.
That
Well-
property over there is,
Well, hold on, I think
Back to
that,
basis questions while Amy's, like the
is,
Presbyterian
yeah.
homes up in Oconomowoc,
bunch of
that's
being a
not
resident
CBRF.
down there, I think everybody would be
CBRF by the
fine
state
with it.
statutes is 8 or less. No.
Gotta
no,
be
no.
careful.
The definition, actually, here's the state statute definition.
Yeah.
Community-based residential facility
Pull it out
means
of
a place
Oh, big.
where 5 or more adults who are not related to the operator or administrator and who do not require care above intermediate level nursing care reside and receive care, treatment or services that are above the level of room and board, but that include no more than 3 hours of nursing care per week per resident.
I'm not trying to solve the world, all of our problems here, but what if we just left the CBRF the way it is, allowed in all zonings, with the exception of residential, which is capped at 8 or 10, or
There you
whatever
go.
the number is?
Do that.
I'm
Do that.
fine with that.
Do that.
Yeah.
And then there's a reason to change. we can
Any size
And,
in a business.
Yeah.
no, just can't do more than 8 in a residential.
Yeah.
And that's
Alright.
still state legal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
It
well,
says it has to be, you know,
Somebody
they
could,
approve up to 8. You have to
Yeah.
allow 8. Now, we could, I don't
Okay.
know,
that's right.
it could be 10, it could be 8, it could be 12. And the highest
That
we see
seems-
here is 15.
That seems reasonable for now.
I'm okay with it, yeah.
Do you want to come back with some language on that, Amy?
Yeah, so just no residential districts, including multifamily, right?
Why
Just
is that
residential
offensive?
districts.
Why is that offensive in a multifamily
Yeah,
zoning
I
district?
think I'm okay in a
You really want to protect your
multifamily.
single family and your two-family zoning districts.
Yeah,
I think just that multifamily here is still subject to density requirements, and then they could come in, instead of potentially only be allowing 12 units on a lot, they could try to do
Could
60.
we put still subject to the density requirements of the zoning, of the multifamily district then?
You could say that the
Once you get
per
over 8?
bed or per individual unit must comply with. Now, CBRFs can be interesting because those 8 or less are usually single-family homes with 8 bedrooms in them. So it doesn't mean it's a unit. That's what's so weird about CBRFs is beds are beds and units that all gets kind of becomes a wash. So I'm looking up county or C and 94 is B5, right? B5 allows medical and dental, clinics, hospitals, medical laboratories.
It's professional.
Professional public research.
So
Other
CBRF would be
scenarios.
allowed there.
I don't know. I think that's questionable. I don't.
Well, maybe you can bring us a couple options on that.
I can tell you about the meeting that we had with the developer, MSI, is that it's not clear cut whether or not it's within the zoning, but the neighbors were willing to give on it because it's residential and because it's within a medical complex where if emergency services were needed, they're right there. You know, and I like to see them always on a main arterial because of that emergency that's going to be needed. You know it's going to be needed sooner or later. It just makes things, you know, it's close to the hospitals, close to a lot of emergency care, close to downtown. And
well, if it
police
doesn't
and
meet
fire.
the list for the
Right.
B5, it can still be amended
Right.
through a zoning
Yeah.
amendment, right? To add that.
Yeah.
CBRFs are allowable in any district right now.
Wow.
B5 or
Yeah,
anything.
and
But
all
we
we're
were-
saying is we're gonna put a limit on residential. I'm
Right.
still confused by
Yeah,
this
plot out a
multi.
residential and see if there's somebody who has restrictions on how many units or people could be in based on what the multifamily residential district is, you know? So if you're,
Yeah, because it'll be surrounded by more single families on
don't
the
know.
south and on the
right?
east.
Because if you want to, then again, you can only build a building so big.
Right.
Yeah, and they have, like, I'm just thinking, I don't remember, R4 and R6 I think are the biggest multifamily. You have to have so much open space per bedrooms. It's actually based on bedrooms.
There's the difference between a CBRF and a dwelling. A CBRF is a
Right.
bed. It doesn't typically have a kitchen. Even our Delhart ordinance it distinguishes between a CBRF like bed, and they charge less than a dwelling. So it is different.
It is
So-
different, but I think they're just trying to find a way of controlling it and then saying it has to be equivalent to. But Scott and I will look at the R4 and R6 because the open space provisions might control it on its own and number of because your open space provisions relate to number of bedrooms, which would be relative to CBRFs.
Okay,
We'll look at it. How about that?
sounds good. We will move on to 13D, building inspector. Still one?
Still one. Tomorrow will be two.
Nice.
Nice.
Good to know.
All right, well, there's stuff coming down the pike that's gonna change soon, I think. All right, number 14, adjourned. Seeing no further business, we are adjourned at 9:19.
This went
How
well
does
tonight.
it,
This really went well.
how does it work with the